This is Bethlehem's 9th Freedom Marathon. Armed with sunscreen and sneakers, runners from over 90 countries gathered in solidarity with Palestinians. Because under Israel's military occupation, they're systematically denied their rights to free movement. They followed Israel's illegitimate wall lined with watchtowers. Built straight through the city, it serves as a constant reminder that under occupation, Palestinian lives do not matter. They ran because when drones filled the air to capture those first steps, kids turned to their moms to ask if the buzzing machines belonged to Israel's army. They showed up for Palestinian political prisoners and they stood for their right to a safe education. They also passed through a refugee camp where generations are still being born into exile. They showed up for Palestinian dignity and they ran for freedom.
Assalamu alaikum, dear listeners and viewers. That was a clip that we've just played you of last year's Palestine Marathon. And we played that as an introduction to this next segment, which I'm delighted to bring to you with some very special guests. As you know, during my guest hosting for Salam Media on this Palestine focus, I've been very keen to highlight aspects of Palestinian culture. So we have in the past spoken about Palestine literature, about food in Palestine, about the keffiyeh, the poetry, etc. And today our focus is on sport in Palestine. I'm delighted to welcome into the studio to help me unpack this Diala Isid, a Palestinian activist and runner from Beit Sahour, Bethlehem, who is currently in the UK, in Nottingham, I think.
Yeah.
And Jalal Khater, or Jalal Abu Khater, a Jerusalem-born Palestinian writer and social commentator who wrote a delightful article in the New Arab. Please go and check it out, listeners, called Running is Resistance for Palestinians Under Israeli Occupation. And last but not least, our very own South African Hassen Lorgat, a former member of the anti-apartheid sports movement and currently with the BDS Coalition here in South Africa. Welcome, good morning, assalamu alaikum to you all. I'm delighted to have you here.
We're happy to be here as well.
Thank you so much for making the time. I'm going to start with you, Diala. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Diala.
Okay, great. Can you set the scene for us and tell us what sparked the Right to Movement organization, and also perhaps tell us a little bit about the importance of sports in Palestinian culture and for Palestinian communities?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you so much for hosting us and for having me on this show. The Right to Movement group started in 2012, and the idea behind it was we wanted to do a marathon in Palestine in standards that internationals could join and can come and run it and see how how the reality is and the situation is in Palestine. So when we started, we were looking for the 42 kilometers distance in the West Bank to try to find that distance for runners to complete the marathon. But we were able to find a stretch of 10.5 kilometers in Bethlehem, which runners need to do 4 times in order to finish the marathon. So from there, the story evolved, and then we realized that it's more than just an organizing a marathon. It's a race that is like no other. It's a race that tells a story. So we called it like we went with the slogan, we run to tell a different story, because the marathon starts at the Nativity Church in Bethlehem and then runs through the streets of Bethlehem towards Jerusalem. But you get stopped by the apartheid wall and also by the checkpoint that separates Bethlehem from Jerusalem. So runners will require to take a turn there and run next to the wall into like 2 refugee camps and reach a point which is like a village in Bethlehem, and then go back to the Nativity Church, and that is a half marathon, and then they do that all over again to finish the full marathon. So that's where the idea of the marathon started, and also the idea of Right to Movement. And together with all the we had some international support from like some Danish volunteers. They were with us from the start, helping us making this marathon a reality. And we had so many international people coming to run it, and by running it you see the reality of how Palestinians live every day without even like thinking about it, because running is a language, and that was
Mhm.
like easy to get to people through doing that race. And the importance, do you ask the importance of sports in Palestine? It's very important, and um, it we, for example, right to movement, we started doing it to also empower women to be active and to be leaders and to do sports, and that is one aspect of it. But it's Palestinians, it just gathered right to movement and the marathon gathered all Palestinians across Palestine to be in one place, and to run for our cause. And at the same time, with the running, with the marathon, we started running groups all across
Mhm.
Palestine, and all of these running groups um, basically made Palestine like seem smaller, because now we started getting to know each other before the marathon and before the running groups. I never knew anyone like in Gaza or in Haifa or in Jaffa,
Mhm.
but the marathon and the running groups connected all of us together.
That's absolutely wonderful. Alhamdulillah. That's really, really phenomenal. Jalal, I'd like to bring you in here. You've spoken about, well, written about these running groups that Diala just mentioned. And you've written about how, for example, 2 years or 3 years ago, I think it was, when there were forced evictions in the Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan neighborhoods in East Jerusalem, these running groups began running in solidarity with those being forced to evict and were actually attacked by the Israeli operation forces. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Of course, running like any other sport or activity can be, a collective effort where you invite people to join you, and at the same time, in the situation in Palestine, there can be the idea that we do this act in form of solidarity. So, like Diana was saying, the idea for this running group, right to movement, it's in the name, right to movement. This is why we run. We run to ensure that we have a right to movement, and we are practicing it in real time, and we are, despite, of course, all obstacles are put in our face by the Israeli occupation, who try to block us, who try to prevent us from moving, who try to imprison us in small areas. So it is an act of protest, of course, when we run as a form of practicing our right to movement. So what happened in Jerusalem is that, again, running is something where we practice our own rights, and we remind people that yes, we exist here, yes, we live in those neighborhoods. The idea of that run was to connect between two areas that are facing threats of eviction, while Israel is trying to separate those areas and keep people away from visiting them, and not expose what is happening in those neighborhoods to the bigger general public. We thought a run would be the most appropriate thing, from one area which is more popular with people to another area which is facing the exact same problem, which was less popular with visitors from outside to come and see what is happening in Silwan. So the idea of the run was run in solidarity, where we start from the area which is very popular and bring people from that area together in the form of a run all the way to the other area. The purpose is to highlight and raise awareness about the forced evictions that are taking place in both neighborhoods, connecting the struggle, making people feel we are present, we are there to support them. And of course, this idea of running is seen as a form of protest and as a form of raising awareness about political issues. This is something that the Israelis don't like at all, and this is why the attack runners brutally, without any reason for it, only because they don't want people to highlight or to protest what is
Mhm.
happening, even if it's in a peaceful form, just as practicing the sport of running.
Absolutely. And I think it's actually a very clever name, the right to movement, given that, firstly, so many other rights are proscribed in the occupied territories. And also that the right to movement is actually something that is not an automatic right for many people in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. I was shocked on my visit there last year to find that it was easier for me to move between Quds, Jerusalem, and Bethlehem and Hebron and Haifa than it is for Palestinians. And not only easier with the tour group, of course, taking an official tour group, but also just using public transport. The very fact that I had a foreign passport made it easier for me to get through those queues at Kalandia and other checkpoints than it was for Palestinians. And, in one case, a heavily pregnant woman, in another case, a woman with 3 little children. I saw elderly people being held back for pretty much no reason at all. So I think this right to movement is a clever play on words, and kudos to you for that. But also, in terms of the restrictions, with regard to this marathon and showing this to the rest of the world, what has the impact been, especially having to root it largely through the so-called area A's, because the area B's are just too dangerous because there are settlers there, etc. Again, you've written about this, Jalal, but if either you or Diala would like to pick up on that.
I'll just maybe Diala, you have something to add on this?
Yeah, I'll just say that definitely, like, yeah, also doing the marathon in area A doesn't mean that it's completely safe as well. So we've had I think in the second or the third marathon, because the marathon goes right next to the Israeli checkpoint that separates Bethlehem from Jerusalem, and also next to the wall, and through the refugee camp, Aida refugee camp. Yeah. The problem is that the marathon is on Friday normally, and Friday after prayers, normally many kids they just go to the checkpoint and they just like to throw stones basically at the checkpoint and at the soldiers, just like imagining that because that is a form of resistance as well, and they're doing nothing. They like, that doesn't kill anyone like from the Israelis, but of course Israelis go back violently against the Palestinians that are throwing stones, and eventually like some flare happened. So that happened in one of the marathons. So it's never safe. Yeah, we do it in area A, but it's not completely safe. But yeah, but I can't gather my ideas right now. So Jalal, do you have anything else to add?
What has the impact been thus far? Have numbers grown over the last 11, 12 years? What kind of reactions have people coming from abroad to run what is a marathon on the international marathon circuit? What have their reactions been? People who've never been perhaps to Palestine before.
Yeah. So the first marathon, we had only 600 runners. Half of them were Palestinians, half of them were internationals. But then it grew to nearly like 10,000 now. I'd say people, when they think about coming to run a marathon in Palestine, they know that it's not a normal marathon. But after running it, if they had any kind of sympathy for Israelis, like, that change. So it changes the narrative of what the international running community are thinking of Palestine and the Palestinians, and it just shows that even though we are under so many restrictions and we live under occupation for nearly more than 75 years, we still want to spread hope, and we still want to do something positive for the community and for Palestine, and talk about Palestine in a good way. And yeah, so the number grew and the impact has been like fantastic. The other things that we were able to connect to many of the international runners that come to run in the Palestine Marathon, and we also managed to take some of the Palestinian runners to run in international marathons. And one of them was going to South Africa. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but we came to South Africa in 2017, and we did the Two Oceans Marathon in Cape Town.
In Cape
So
Town, yes.
yeah, so some runners did the full ultra marathon and some runners did the half marathon. And I was part of the team and I did the half marathon. And at the same time, we spoke with many local communities, and also we spoke at the BDS South Africa about what we do in Palestine. And it was fantastic.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Please hold that thought. Hassen, I'm going to bring you in after this next ad break. We do have to go and pay the bills. So onto an ad break and stay with us, please.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Ramadan, a month to go beyond our ordinary, praying more, giving more, connecting more. Join Africa Muslims Agency to feed the fasting for 110 Rand per day. Provide a grocery hamper for 1,600 per month and feed a village or camp for 17,000 Rand per day. Every donation goes beyond just food and water. It transforms lives, empowers communities, and brings the spirit of Ramadan to thousands in need. Together, we can bring hope to families in Gaza, South Africa, Mozambique, and 18 other countries. This Ramadan, go beyond with AMA for a better world.
Abu Hurairah narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, in black seed there is a healing for every disease except death. This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
In a first for South Africa, Muslim families can now access priceless private emergency medical care with the only fully Sharia-compliant medical takaful and wellness plan. In the event of illness or an accident, Emergivac Sharia will evacuate you by private ambulance to a private hospital and cover you for up to 575,000 Rand for in-hospital expenses, such as radiology, pathology, surgery, ICU, theatre, doctor and specialist expenses. Plus, you receive 24-hour armed response services, roadside, home and even appliance assistance services. Simply download the Emergivac app and register online or SMS Sharia to 40777. Emergivac Sharia, for when serious emergencies require seriously fast response.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this.
Welcome back. We're speaking about sport in Palestine today. Our focus for Palestine today is on sport. We've been talking to Diala Isid and Jalal Khater, both of the Right to Movement. And we'd now like to bring in our local guest, Hassen Lorgat. Hassen, welcome to you. Can you reflect a little bit perhaps on the similarities and links with what Diala and Jalal have been saying and our situation here historically in apartheid South Africa, and also what the BDS movement is doing with regard to sport and sport boycotts?
Yeah, let me start, Aisha, thanks. Let me start by saying that our movement was both internally based. We had the South African Council on Sport, which had a number of sporting codes. Before them, there was the South African Sports Association in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And in 1958, these some of them were school teachers, principals, even of our schools. campaigned to international bodies to isolate white South Africa from international sports. Football, cricket, rugby, those popular ones, athletics, were the targets. And from those moments, we found a stumbling block, not dissimilar to the one that we're finding now internationally. Initially, there was a big stumbling block because the racists who were in charge of international sport, like Sir Stanley Roos from the football, they all were dined and wined in South Africa because South Africa had all the things to dine and wine about, food-wise, but not racially and the injustice of apartheid. So it was an uphill battle for these comrades who were to go knocking on doors, going to ask for friendship, so that these bodies in France, in Germany, in all the countries, in fact, East Germany was quite an active supporter of the anti-apartheid sports movement. So the aim was to isolate South Africa, but the way you could do it was to say that we have a sporting code in this country, right? The South African Darts Association, table tennis. In fact, I remember as a young guy, we played 3-4 sports. I played table tennis near to the recreation center where I was. I used to run, and I played football. So we had many sporting codes. In fact, I would argue that the participation in sport by oppressed people was far greater under apartheid than it is today. Now there's a tendency towards elite sport, whereas there was a great participation, some of it with a political intention to isolate South Africa. So we would go internationally and say, we have 2 sporting codes. One is anti-racist and the one is racial. Why do you accept only the racist white bodies? They are denying us sports facilities, etc. But a very similar example to what the athletes are doing in Palestine is that Den Keke, the Den Keke Stadium in Eastern Cape was formed to play rugby in the township and became a stalwart of black rugby. So the idea was that the police would come and try and stop people from playing anti-racist sport, or they'd deny you facilities. So that has been our campaign. But we would play in the townships. Some of the games would be disrupted, but not to the scale that we found that is happening in Palestine. But as regards the BDS and PSA my branch that I belong to, we've been very active on a number of things. This last 6 months, we campaigned against Orlando Pirates playing an Israeli team in a friendly football match. In fact, the local Orlando Pirates team had a very strong anti-apartheid legacy, but they said there was no law stopping them from playing against Zionists. But that is, I'll just enumerate that. Then the other issue is that we campaigned, protested at the Newlands Cricket Stadium to have David Teager, a young man's.
We appear to have lost sound from Hassen, but thank you, Hassen, for that overview of sporting codes historically in South Africa. Hopefully, we'll get you back. In the meantime, Diala and Jalal, can you comment perhaps around the challenges and the opportunities facing Palestinians who compete internationally, not only in running, but we know you have a very active national football team, for example. You've got some stellar basketball players making waves in the international arena, etc. So can you comment a little bit about the challenges they face? I know in apartheid South Africa, Black sportsmen wouldn't get visas to go overseas and compete, etc. Do your sports people face similar challenges?
Perhaps I can start and Diala can follow up because she's also very much involved in organizing runner teams. It's always an interest for us as runners to participate in global running competitions and winning teams globally. However, again, as you note correctly so, Aisha, is that the visa problem is always an issue that we face. Many times we find difficulties in organizing a full team to attend a race in one country. Sometimes it is difficult to leave the country, to travel away outside Palestine. This is perhaps the most tricky part. I remember one time we organized a team. There was myself and Diala and others who were involved in the organizing, and we were going to Chile to participate in a marathon there. We were invited, of course, to participate in the marathon. We had people who were hosting us, but I think the most difficult part again was departing from Palestine. Some of the team have to go through the land crossing to Jordan. Other members of the team have to go through the airport at Tel Aviv. It depends where you live, what kind of passport you hold. We cannot travel as a group at all together. And once we cross this first obstacle, which is leaving Palestine and meeting abroad, things become a little bit easier for us. But yeah, it's always a challenge for us to participate in global competitions. However, we always don't give up and we want to do more of this. I'm sure Diala maybe has some more to add on participating in global competition.
Diala, anything to add there?
Yeah, I have to mention something that is also like in Palestine itself, like the people from Gaza. We tried so many times to get them to come to the West Bank to participate in the marathon in the West Bank, or just to participate in some of the activities that we do with Right to Movement, either like local runs, weekly runs, or any other activity. And we haven't managed to get them from Gaza to the West Bank. And of course, also we were never able to also go to Gaza from the West Bank to meet them. So we had like a small running group in Gaza, they were very hopeful that we could meet and we could just be just like normal nations around the world, Palestinians running together or doing some activities together, but we were not able to do that at all in the past 12 years. And so I never met them. And eventually, and also we tried to get them to come and run with us in international marathons. So we tried to do, when we went to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, to get some of the runners to come with us. And that was impossible. Like we were not able to get any permits for them to leave Gaza and to travel. But that, yeah, it's really difficult that even us, like Palestinians together, we cannot like meet and run in the same place together. And yeah, traveling abroad, it's really difficult for us from the West Bank, but it's even like extra layers of difficulty for people that are living in Gaza.
In Gaza. So it just illustrating once more that Gaza really truly is the concentration camp it's been called, because not only can Gazans not travel outside of Palestine, but they can't even travel to the West Bank to participate in a running group or a marathon with those of you who live in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. One last question to you both, and I see we've got Hassen back. We need to wrap up fairly soon, so some last comments from all of you. I'm going to come to you first, Hassen, but I would also like to ask Diala and or Jalal to reflect on the calls for sporting boycotts of Israel, and whether you think that may have any effect on the occupying regime. So Hassen, I'm going to come back to you to allow you to finish that thought and perhaps just round up from the South African side, please.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's very important because it sends the message that we will not accept what Israel is doing. So we always like tell our runners that they're not, for example, allowed to run in any of the Israeli marathons because we shouldn't and we don't. And at the same time, when we see internationals boycotting and not competing against Israelis, it gives us hope. So it's very, very important.
So it's important both in terms of the solidarity with you guys, but also in terms of isolating Israel. I know the sport boycott was a big factor for many South Africans and changed attitudes amongst ordinary white South Africans as well, when South African teams or apartheid South African teams were isolated and not allowed to compete in the international arena. Hassen, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we have to isolate Israel, the Zionist state, but we need to build the connections directly with these comrades who are runners. Like recently, 3 weeks ago, the Palestinian select football team came to play in the Western Cape. So direct and strengthen people-to-people contact. But in our campaigning to isolate Zionist Israel, we must point out that how they kill with impunity, maim and injure young people. 1,000 young people were amputated without anesthetics. We know in 2021, there was a Palestinian amputee football team formed in the Gaza. Now, we need to bring those real stories back here to us so that we can tell people. But importantly, we need to say to the world that when they act in a racist manner, when whites are affected, like when Russia impacts on Ukraine, they can get isolated immediately. But when Palestinians get killed and maimed with impunity, we cannot even give them a red card. They should not be playing in international sport. So we're taking this to SAFA, we're taking this to the cricket bodies, we're taking it everywhere and clubs. But we have to strengthen our movement, and we need to be in direct contact with others doing similar work.
Well, absolutely. Indeed. Hassen, you make a very, very important point there. Just yesterday, I was reading a story about the Gaza Sunbirds, which is the team of amputees who are playing soccer or had formed a soccer team in Gaza. But also I was reading a report that said that Gaza is now has the highest number of pediatric, in other words, children amputees
Presumably
of anywhere.
Hamas fighters.
Presumably Hamas fighters, but children amputated, the highest number anywhere in the world in any point in history. So that just brings the gravity of the situation in Gaza currently back to
Aisha,
the core. Yes,
I just
Hassen.
want to add one thing. The T-shirt I'm wearing is the Palestinian football team from Chile, right?
Wonderful.
Palestine. Now it is, we need them in our movement to come and play here with the top dogs of our country and our leagues, so that we can create this awareness that's an avenue for struggle. The work that Susan Abulowa is doing on playgrounds for Palestine is amazing. The fact that the Zionists are bombing football pitches, arresting, using pitches to torture people, reminds us of Chile. So there are a number of connections that we can make if we want a sports movement that is liberating to all of us and not oppressive.
Absolutely. And thank you again for that, Hassen. Very important points made there. Diala, I'm going to let you have the last word. Unfortunately, we are now out of time, but I'd like a final thought from you, please. And then from Jalal.
I just want to say thank you to South Africa for what they're doing for us. To be honest, we're always
doing
like
it for ourselves too.
We're always like proud, and yeah, you just make us like you give us hope. Yeah, that's what it is. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing for us, and yeah, hopefully we will have peace one day, and Zionist Israel will be gone.
Inshallah, we will keep doing what we're doing. We'll keep coming to visit. We'll keep trying to build those linkages and connections that Hassen was talking about. Jalal, final word from you, please.
It was great speaking to you all today, and indeed, the fight for justice is a long one and requires commitment, dedication. I think first and foremost, we must focus on isolating Israel in the world of sports, in the world of academia, in every single aspect. There is no space for such an ideology as Zionism in this world. And I appreciate the solidarity between our nations, our peoples, because we have a shared struggle, a shared vision for peace. And I hope that we have, inshallah, and we shall emerge victorious out of this.
Palestine is helping us. Palestine helps us to rediscover who we are and the better side of ourselves. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. And discussions like this not only help us and you, I hope, but also help to rehumanize Palestinians in the eyes of our viewers and our listeners, because I think it is very important that we push back against the systematic dehumanization of Palestinians. And to see that Palestinians run, play football, play cricket, basketball, that, you know, they organize marathons, they bring international athletes and go out internationally. It really rehumanizes you as a people to the rest of the world. And that is our aim. So thank you very much, all three of you, for being with us today. It's been wonderful chatting to you all. And shukran jazilan to you all. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Goodbye. We need to go to an ad break.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.